Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day, and we ask that we may glorify your name. We ask that we may persevere in our faith, that your name may be glorified, and we ask that we are open to your grace to transform us, to change us, to heal us, to reconcile us, and to become stronger witnesses and testifiers to the faith. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. I guess the word witness is actually a testifier, so I don't know. Anyway, we welcome you to our broadcast, by the way. If this is your first time tuning us in, I always want to welcome you and hoping that you find that our words touch your heart. If you're returning to the program, by the way, we are really happy that you've come back, that something has struck your heart, that you enjoy this program on a regular basis. And please, we encourage you to share the program. Not only talk about what you experienced today on the show, but also share where people can find it at WEZE and also at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. So anyway, today is a really interesting day for those of us who live in the Northeast. And the reason is, here we are in Boston. I know there are people that are listening in other parts of the country and, by the way, of the world, but here in Boston. So kind of look at it this way. I'm in Boston, which is at the end of Route 90, which is Interstate Route 90, also known in Massachusetts Turnpike, which, by the way, I can virtually throw a stone to it. I won't, but I can virtually throw a stone to it from here. If I get on Route 90 and I go a little over 3 hours west of here, I come to one of the most sacred places in my mind in the northeast of the United States, and that is the shrine of the North American Martyrs, where were martyred Saints John de Brebeuf, Isaac Jogues, and Rene Goupil were martyred west of here in Boston, about 3.5 hours. It's a place called Orisville, New York. Beautiful area, by the way. It looks right over the Erie Canal and the trains that go by the Erie Canal, and also the routes. And it's a beautiful area. And it's also the place where Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha was born, all in that area. And it was the place where the Mohawk tribe was. And here was St. Isaac Jogues, St. John de Brebeuf, and St. Rene Goupil were obviously not saints at the time because they were still living, and they were trying to convert the Native Americans. Now, what are they trying to do? They're trying to force their Catholicism on them. No, that doesn't make any sense. They've come to understand this truth. See, this is what we have to understand about Catholicism. And maybe that's why we're going through such a difficult time, because the Lord is calling us back to our roots. We're called to our roots. And what are our roots? To come to the excitement of truth. Imagine this scenario. This is what Catholicism is all about. Imagine this scenario. Say, for example, someone is working on some kind of experimentation. And in their experimentation, we'll say something in astronomy. And in their investigation there and everything, they discover not only a brand new planet, but they also discover a brand new understanding of life by seeing this whole new, we'll say, solar system. I mean, let's go science fiction all the way. This whole new solar system and this whole new understanding of life. Somehow, maybe through a radio telescope, they come and they hear these words that are still related to our faith in a way which they find fascinating, because there's one God. They discover, hey, even they believe the same God. But there is this powerful teaching that just all of a sudden changes their whole understanding of existence. They just understand something totally new. That's what Jesus taught the apostles. And you can see that in the first letter of John, which is not one of the readings today, but that's what Jesus taught the apostles. Yesterday we talked about the perseverance of St. Paul. So that's what Jesus taught the apostles. So we understand that dynamic, that truth, that power. Wow. Literally, once people understood what Jesus taught, they would be going, wow. And you can see that in not only in the prologue of John, but you can see it more in the prologue of the first letter of John. This whole, we have to tell you, this is so exciting. That's what they were teaching. That's their understanding. That's the dynamic. That's what we're teaching. We're not coming in and saying you have to follow these rules and you have to do this and you have to do that. That doesn't make any sense. They were teaching a whole new understanding of who we are. Now, you got to realize when you're teaching this whole new understanding, we talked about the dynamic yesterday with Alexander the coppersmith. That's, people may not be ready to hear that. It may be a whole different understanding, so much so that it really throws the whole economy off in some places. We understand, but it's still the truth. It's this deeper truth. It's not just, here is a set of rules, follow this and you'll be saved. It's like, no, there is this deeper truth. So that's what they've come to do, to come to teach. And that's going to have this great reaction in response, and people are going to react, and that's what we see. That becomes the martyrdom of them, but it also sows the seeds of this whole new this is what Christianity is, a whole new understanding of who we truly are. We'll talk more on the other side of the break. You're listening to St. Anthony Overnight from St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. Have you ever wanted to read the Bible but didn't know which readings to check out? Well, how about looking at the church's daily readings? You can find them at the website of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Just go to bible.usccb.org and click on the date that pops up on that page. There are other options on that page as well. That is bible.usccb.org, and click on the date and you will see the daily readings for your own prayer and study of the Bible. This is a prayerful tip from St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. And don't forget our website, CatholicAudiomedia.com. Share our link with others. Let them know, hey, have you checked out this show? Or checked out the website? And let people know that we're doing this to excite you in the same way about your faith. From St. Anthony Parish, and remember, you have a standing invitation not only to our St. Thomas Aquinas discussion group tonight, but also to our Mass on Sundays, 10 o'clock a.m. So we are talking this powerful truth that the French martyrs, they were French Jesuits. Saint Rene Goupil, it's hard for me to pronounce that, Saint Isaac Jogues, and Saint John de Brebeuf. They were French martyrs, and here they are preaching in this very powerful way. But, we also have to see how people would be resistant, and the members of the tribe obviously would be resistant. Maybe a good example would be when I was in Ecuador. There was a problem, as we were talking about virus and stuff, there was a problem with cholera. And the government asked the churches to tell people to stop, swimming in the water because there was danger of cholera, and stop doing. And of course, you got to realize that the water was used also for doing laundry. It was also used where people sometimes went to the bathroom and all kinds of things. And I'm not talking the water meaning right there. There was a river. It was the Daule River. No, the whole river, all the way from its source in the Andes all the way down into the Pacific. And so we'd explain that, and the people would say, our people have been using this river forever. So, no, we're not going to change our habits just because you come along and say there's some kind of disease in the river. And that was the resistance we would have. Well, if you think of it from that perspective, we can see it even more so. Think of this. Do you know it took 200 years for people to finally accept the fact that the Earth revolved around the sun and not the sun around the earth? It took about 200 years. So when Copernicus says, I have something to tell you, and died afterwards, he planned it that way because he knew it would be earth-shaking. So he said, why don't I save this for my deathbed? That way I can let people know, and then I die and I won't get any back. That's true. Any attacks over this, I won't go through cancel culture. And so he actually revealed it on his deathbed. So who became the lightning rod? Galileo. That's part of the whole story of Galileo. So it took about 200 years, yet these are facts. These are true. So you can imagine what kind of resistance anyone who's going to go into a culture and start teaching this new truth. Remember, this isn't Jesus just saying these are a new set of rules. You have to follow these rules if you want to be saved. It is, let me give you a whole new understanding of who you are, of who we are, of what it means to be a human being, of what reality is all about. That's really what Jesus actually teaches in the form of we see in the Gospels, and so much more. Remember, the last line in the letter of Paul says Jesus taught so many things that there isn't enough books in the entire world to hold all that information. I don't have the phrase exact, but it's in there. It's the last line of John. So you can see this, that Jesus is teaching this powerful truth, and the people are just enamored by it, and we can see that from 1 John. Well, so when these Jesuit martyrs are teaching for the first time to the Mohawks, and they haven't heard this teaching before, they don't know about Jesus before, they don't know about anything, and they come and teach, there's going to be this intense resistance. There's going to be these people who try to silence them, because our ancestors have worshipped the way we have worshipped for forever. And all of a sudden you're going to tell us there's a new way to worship? Sorry, no. I mean, think of it this way. If you want to go really to a more benign level, think of the Great Resistance when Coca-Cola came out with new Coke. And people were like, there were people who said, that's it, we want the old Coke. And they had to bring back Coca-Cola Classic because people weren't ready to hear something new. And so this is the truth, but it's something that people weren't ready to hear. And that's one of the issues we've talked about now for 2 days in a row with the 2 different celebrations there. This reality of we're teaching a truth that sets people free. If what you heard today touched your heart, we encourage you to share today's podcast, as always, with friends and family so that they can be enlightened as well. And as you know, we want to spread this podcast and the radio broadcast all over, so we want to let more people know. Thank you again for tuning in. We look forward to you tuning in to our next podcast. Remember, look us up at CatholicAudiomedia.com, and we will talk to you tomorrow right here on WEZE 590 AM, and we're at midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com and also iHeartRadio. We're at Reason, we're Google, we're a few other places. So all of that, have yourself a blessed day.
In Cristo vivimos.